Hello.
Hey.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Who are you? No, just kidding. Hi. Thanks for coming.
It's great to be here.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got DoorDash and Sequoia. Thanks for taking some time. I'm going to go right into my questions. Tony, you are in a really awesome market. Everybody loves delivery services. You know, we're getting everything delivered now. But it's also very, very tough. So there have been a lot of failures and so on. So what are you guys doing at DoorDash to make sure you don't drown in the dead pool?
Well, we're doing what we've always been doing, and I think the short answer is we're first and foremost building the best customer experience, and doing it for selection that's never been delivered in the marketplace before. And the way that we've been doing that is by creating a new type of logistics company where we're powered by technology and software instead of human-operated decisions. And it's because we've written software for each side of our marketplace, our consumers, our dashers, our merchants, and we're writing a complicated engine to coordinate all of the actions that we've been successful. And so in many ways we're doing what we've set along to do from day one, which is to build a technology company and to offer the best customer experience. I don't know if you saw actually, just a couple months ago, we've started to introduce elements of the power of our system and surface it to our customers. In March, we launched our redesign of our app, where we introduced a delight score. And so we're taking the hundreds of millions of data points that we've collected across all deliveries and surfacing an industry first, which is how do you pick from a marketplace of tens of thousands of merchants the best ones for delivery, right? Taking into account timeliness, accuracy, et cetera. And so we're taking what we've done from day one, which is writing complicated software in the back to offer a simple and best-in-class experience to customers.
Okay, and is that stuff getting personalized much? Like, are you able to serve me because I happen to really like sushi? Do I get more of that than like the next person who likes burgers?
We're starting to do that.
Yeah.
And so first and foremost, we're trying to do that at the market level, right?
Right.
I know New York is the delivery mecca of the US, but that's not exactly true in most cities in the United States. In fact, 85% of restaurants don't deliver. And so we're learning different habits by market, and soon you'll start seeing us personalize those habits to consumers.
Okay, Alfred.
Yes.
Okay, there are literally hundreds of delivery companies out there right now. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Maybe we can come back to that later.
I'm happy to comment on what.
Okay, well, I was going to ask you something about DoorDash, but do you want to say something about what just happened?
We'll go with your questions. We'll come back to it when it fits your interview.
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay, let's get back to that because that actually is relevant to something else I was going to talk about. But anyway, I'll get back to it.
Sure.
Okay, look, going back to this. A lot of companies out there doing delivery. Why did you guys decide to make a bet on this specific one, on DoorDash?
Well, first we've met a lot of the companies in the space, and we were very impressed when we met Tony and his co-founders. They had a singular vision about what they were doing, about building technology for the space and not just delivering. And they've been very consistent with that mission from day one to every single day since we've invested in the company. We met Tony at YC. Took some time for us to get to know Tony and his team. We didn't invest right away out of YC Demo Day. We tracked the company, we followed the growth, and they've just been very, very consistent on doing what they said they were going to do. So this is a very competitive business, and if you're afraid of competition, in general, that's not a good thing. And these guys are fearless and excellent at execution.
Right, okay. So Everybody is pretty focused in your market, including you guys. You've just raised a pretty sizable round of money. Everyone's pretty focused on scale, and growing. But there's been this kind of also growing trend of people starting to talk about making money versus scale, so profit versus scale. I'm assuming you guys are not focused on profit right now, so when will you be? When are you going to be big enough to be able to say, right, we're going to shift the gears now and start profiting rather than going at a loss?
Well, I don't think any startup should wait for, whether it's the press or investors to tell them when to shift from profit, to growth or vice versa. At DoorDash, we've always been focused on sustainable growth from day one. It's actually, maybe many of the folks in the audience don't know this, but for the first year and a half of our 2.5-year history, DoorDash was only in 3 markets. And the reason why we're in 3 markets was because we're making sure that we're building a product that people loved and that we can grow organically in those markets in a very sustainable way. And until we've done that, we did not expand. And so it's only in the last 12 months that DoorDash has expanded from 3 to 24 markets across North America, and we've done that in a sustainable way.
So are you saying that you could be profitable now if you wanted to be, or no?
We've been able to figure out how to become profitable in a market. In fact, we've done that. We've become cash flow positive in our earliest markets. And so we have the playbook in understanding how to take existing markets and funding new expansion. And that's a very, very important thing, as you're building out your playbook for any sort of expansion. Okay,
Alfred, how much of a priority is it for you guys as an investor these days?
I think it's always been a priority. I mean, when Tony came in and pitched us, our partnership asked him, how well do you know your unit economics? And it turned out he really knew his unit economics of the business, and so it's always been important. You can't be profitable while you're investing. We do look at it on a unit basis as well as a market basis, and so, as Tony said, in their earlier markets, they're not just profitable, they're cash flow positive in those markets, and while you're investing in new markets, those markets are not going to be profitable on day one.
But do you, whether it's DoorDash or actually one of your other companies, you've got a very wide and deep portfolio, we'll get to that in a minute, but how much pressure or interest are you putting on the profitability question versus growth?
We've always been focused on profitability. There's this sort of continuum. There's growth at all costs and cash flow generation at all costs.
Right.
I don't think great companies are on one extreme or the other. The great companies that last and become enduring businesses, they have both. And so it's actually important to strike a good balance on both and be able to say and, not either or.
Do you think that startups like DoorDash, Alfred, have what it takes to be profitable longer term, though, or do you think it inevitably has to become part of a bigger machine, like an Amazon or something like that?
Well, I think if you asked that question in 1997 about Amazon, you assume that e-commerce companies could make it.
Right.
And that turned out not to be true. So we're in the business of starting companies and building out a business over time.
Okay.
And at the beginning, it's not going to be as profitable as you would like, but over time, you expect them to be profitable. There are many ways to see why DoorDash can be a very profitable company over time.
Okay.
It's a large market. They're executing extremely well. They started later than a lot of their competitors, and they've sort of inched themselves into market leadership in a much shorter period of time than a lot of the other competitors that have been around some for a few years longer, some for decades longer.
Okay, so profit versus growth being one challenge, but what would you say is the hardest part of running a delivery startup? Tony?
Well, I mean, the hardest part is really keeping everything in balance, right? And there's a couple of dimensions to this. You touched on one of them, which is, how do you invest, the company's capital effectively, right? The second is, well, how do you, best serve the marketplace of 3 audiences, consumers, merchants, and dashers, and how do you keep that in check? If you have, too much demand, not enough dashers, that's one challenge. If you have too many dashers, not enough, restaurants, so on and so forth, that's another challenge. And so we have the unique challenge where we have to solve product market fit across 3 audiences, right? And obviously it doesn't matter to our customer at the end of the day, but in order to make that experience perfect and to make the business work, we have to do that. And
Right.
so keeping quality while we grow quantity, balancing the needs across all three audiences,
Yeah.
those are the most difficult challenges.
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of talking about this backstage actually in reference to Airbnb, which is ironic. I was asking Alfred about, like what we were comparing Airbnb with Uber and so on, and the idea of how you make everyone in the marketplace happy. But so that woman who had come up earlier, she was raising a big issue about the kind of supply in certain touch point markets. Which brings up another point, which is that you guys at DoorDash, your kind of touch point is that the Dashers, as you call them, there's been a lot of legal challenges in the wider market for you guys and others, Handy and so on, around employee benefits, contractor benefits. Where are you guys on that right now, and what's your sort of take on that area, the difficulty of this new economy that we're talking about?
I think the first thing to understand there is, what type of work are we talking about, right? This is not the traditional 9-to-5 job, right? In fact, it's almost the exact opposite. People, specifically desire flexible work. That's really, really important in terms of offering product market fit to that audience. Second, it's also very important to get their input. And in fact, we have, several groups of Dashers in which we've materially change the product for in order to make sure that we can find product market fit with that audience. So for example, across many markets, we have groups of deaf Dashers, right, where by learning to work with them, we've been able to change the product so that we can be accessible to anyone who wants to find flexible work.
But where are you on the position of giving more benefits? I mean, yesterday Uber did this interesting deal where they're kind of aligning with a guild here in New York, and the idea is they want to try to come up with structures to then give more benefits to their drivers. Is that something that you guys would be potentially open to doing as well, or what?
Well, we're always looking to take the input to see what types of benefits are actually most attractive to our Dashers, right? And so, that includes product changes, that includes other types of benefits that you're referring to, and what you'll see us do is constantly have that dialogue and make sure that we can continuously best serve that audience.
Right.
I think it's a very important sort of conversation. It's not there are people who want to get paid in a very, very flexible way. They want very flexible hours. In those situations, it is much more like a contract worker, and they want that. And I think the thing that sort of Senator Warner has sort of talked about was, okay, there's more and more people that are working in the flexible sort of environment, but where's their safety net? That is a very important question that I think we all have to sort of think through and resolve. Over the years, we've moved from more flexibility in the whole workforce. There used to be pensions. We don't have pensions anymore.
But do you think contractors should ultimately, if you're a contractor who's dedicating a lot of time to a particular business, do you think that business has a obligation to do more for you, or what? What do you think?
I think there's going to be, look, I don't run the government, but if I were running the government, I probably would have 3 classifications of workers. There's the sort of like you work 9 to 5. It's very regular. There's the very flexible, and then there's somewhere in between. And then
right.
we can work out what are the appropriate benefits along that spectrum. But it is not clear to me right now that where people fall. You have all 3 classes of people
right.
working in the on-demand economy. And we need to sort of figure out how to parse that.
Yeah, it is something I think we need to, definitely. So, okay, so just going back to something you said earlier, Tony, about how you kind of originally conceived of DoorDash as a logistics company first, which is definitely, in my opinion, right answer. But now that you guys are, getting the food done, and you've gone kind of a little more mainstream with Dunkin' Donuts and stuff. Not Dunkin', was it Dunkin'? Yeah, it is Dunkin' Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts,
yeah.
Taco Bell.
Yep, exactly. What are you going to do next? What's the next step for you guys? When are my mom friends going to get diapers from DoorDash? Diaper Dash. Just kidding. But no, not necessarily. But I'm just saying, what's the next step for you guys? What are you going to do next?
Well, first and foremost, we're going to keep our focus in building, our core vertical and making sure that we offer the best experience, right? Right now we serve tens of thousands of merchants. There's hundreds of thousands of merchants, to serve just in our core business, right? Who's never offered delivery before. And we're going to add to the momentum that we've built in 2015, when we went from 3 to 24 markets. So you'll see us, add to our markets. You'll see us add extensions of our product into better serving different types of customers in our core vertical. And you'll also start seeing us, extend some of the foundation that we've been working so hard to build in the back end into other types of deliveries, right?
Okay.
But I've always believed that you kind of have to do one thing really well before you've earned the right to kind of do a second thing. And that's a mantra that we live by at DoorDash, and so, until we perfect our vertical, which is very large, you'll only see us make inroads into other places, a step at a time in a very thoughtful way.
But all the same, like, does Amazon keep you up at night? Because, I mean, Amazon is doing the same thing, basically, and they're doing more and more of it, and they're gigantic, and have a lot of capital and infrastructure and so on. How do you compete against that?
I think if all of the startups in this room thought about, the Amazons or the Googles or the Facebooks of the world, I'm not so sure that all of the, startups here, could become the next, Amazons, Googles, and Facebooks, right?
Yeah.
At one point, the Amazons, Facebooks, and Googles of the world were probably much smaller versions of themselves today. And so, in many ways, I don't think too much about that. Instead, I think about, first and foremost, how do we build the best product? How do we do it for 3 different types of audiences? How do we build the best team? DoorDash, we believe we have built an unmatched team in our space. And how do we continuously build that, now that we're more than just a product, so that we can build for the long term?
Has Amazon tried to buy you guys at any point?
Again, those are not conversations that we talk about, and DoorDash has...
You don't want to talk about that on stage at TechCrunch Disrupt?
Our interest is to build a long-term independent business, and it's been that way since day one.
What about Google? Has Google
today.
ever tried to buy you guys?
No comments.
No comment, okay. How would you feel about that? Would you be happy with them selling to the bigger company? Selling out to a bigger company? Selling up?
We invest in fearless leaders on a mission that produce great companies that add value to the customers that they have, and that's the case. They can be a real, not just an sort of sustainable business, but they can be a category king. We'd rather wait for that.
We think that it's going to take, up to 10 years to build even the first version of what we're conceiving, right?
Yeah.
Which is a delivery network for local businesses in every market that we serve. And we don't think about any distractions that get in the way of that.
Okay.
And really, again, to the entrepreneurs in this room, I would really encourage you to think about, first and foremost, what is your path towards that 10-year plan, and how are you going to think about the different audiences that you're trying to serve?
Can you see why we invested in Tony?
Okay, but let's turn that question around now. So you don't want to tell us about how Amazon tried to buy you guys. But you might want to tell us about, there are like a ton of other delivery companies out there. There is consolidation going on. Have you looked at making acquisitions? Is this the sort of area that you might use to grow, or do you think it's better to focus organically on this kind of stuff?
We've been principally focused on ourselves, and I think that's been a consistent message that I've been delivering here, which is companies are built inside out, right?
Yeah.
You have to know what you are authentically good at and focused in. If you don't know that, all this other talk about changes in the industry, things like this really doesn't matter if you don't offer your unique point of view, and that's what we're building. We're building our own point of view, which is building a new type of logistics company powered by technology, and we think that there's a large opportunity ahead of us.
So that doesn't sound like you would like to acquire companies, but it's quite interesting because I think when we were doing our prep talk in advance of this, you asked me who I rated as delivery companies in London. And it got me wondering, do they want to buy one? Do you think when you go, because you're not international at all right now, really, when you do plan to expand, would it be on your own steam, or do you think it might be through consolidation?
So right now, DoorDash operates in the U.S. and Canada.
Yeah.
Certainly, we're looking, at different places in the world. for potential expansion. I think it's very, very early days. I think, again, we're in New York where everyone and everything is delivered. That's not true in 99% of the world, right? And so I think there's lots of opportunity out there, and when we think there's a fantastic opportunity that aligns with our vision, we will enter.
Yeah. I'm just going to ask one more question. We did get distracted, so I'm going to carry this on for like another minute because of the lady who came in. But Alfred, I know that DoorDash, when you raised your last round, it was a sizable round. There was talk about it being a lower valuation than the original that you guys would have wanted, which was, I think, around $1 billion. Alfred, how much could DoorDash have raised if they'd stuck to the higher valuation? Do you have any comment on that?
Well, you should ask Tony that question. But I don't think we ever went out to sort of set an expectation. The number that leaked into the press was not the number that we ever sort of discussed with investors. It was. People are so chatty. Well, I think that's unfortunate. I think some of this like piecemeal information that gets into the press sometimes hurts the company when they're fundraising.
Of course it does, yeah.
And I, for one, think that it's silly that leaks come out of the company, and I'm pretty sure they're from the inside investors that are talking among themselves that leak that information as opposed to the company, because the company has no desire to have that, which is a public company trying to raise money, have that information go out. But raise a sizable amount. It was the amount that we had targeted originally, and we were going to let the market determine the valuation.
Okay. If I can, sorry, I'm going to ask one more question, and this you may be able to answer this in that one, which is about the valuation. But do you have any advice for startups in the out here who are watching this on the subject of raising money right now? If they're being pressured on the valuations or anything, is there like a piece of advice you could give, Tony?
The advice I'd offer is that companies are never, their ultimate success is never dictated by a number at any point in time. And I think it's interesting that all of us in the ecosystem over the last 5 or 6 years have somehow shifted towards a discussion towards valuations. That's actually never really happened before until the last 5 or 6 years. So instead, I would focus on what actually matters, right? What is the rate of change in terms of how you're building your company? What are you now learning about your customers that you didn't know before? What are you now learning about your product and your team that you didn't know before? Because that's what we focus on, and in the long run, the score will take care of itself.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, we're way over. So thanks very much, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.